And welcome back to the second half of the video. This is the review portion for the Pixio PX325c monitor review. And if you missed the unboxing and first look of it, feel free to hit the link in the upper right hand corner of the screen. And otherwise, stay right here for the full review. Alright, so here we are looking at the on-screen display real quick. You have your 4 buttons down here. You have your menu, your down, up, exit, and then your power button. Kind of wish the power button was a little bit further off to the side because it makes it, I often hit it by accident whenever I go to hit the exit. But let's go ahead and take a quick look at the on-screen display. So it's fairly simple. So you start off with, of course, your picture selections, and then you can do brightness, contrast, eco, where you select a profile. And then we'll take a look at this main SR in just a second. This is what I'll talk about later that actually smooths out the image. So let's go back, and then you've got your color. So you can select your temperature, and then your red, green, and blue levels. Your on-screen display, you can select your languages, horizontal, vertical, transparency, the timeout, what have you. And then your setup is fairly basic. That's where you can select what type of input you want to use. You want to mute the built-in speakers, what volume you want them set at, and then of course reset. So down in others is where you're going to find your display size, your blue, your overdrive, and your FreeSync. But let's take a look at that one setting there, the main SR. We'll take a look at that real quick. All right, so this is the SR. We're going to do a quick test showing you. Right now it is off, so we're going to turn it to weak and median, strong, and strongest. You'll notice the text gets a bit clearer each time, but it also is very pixelated because of the screen size. So again, there it is at off and strongest, off and strongest. So when it's off, it actually smooths it out. But when you're sitting back, it doesn't really blur it. If you're leaned in real close, like how we have the camera here, it does look a little bit blurred by comparison to it off, but it also is a lot cleaner looking. So it smooths it out quite a bit. So that's something that I got to give them props for doing. So let's get into the full-on thoughts and opinions on this monitor. So with all of that out of the way, so looking at the monitor as well as the OSD and such and some of the little features that it has, I've spent the past week exclusively using the PX325c. And while I wasn't expecting a whole lot at first, I mean, let's just look at it for what it is. It is a 32-inch 1080p monitor. And I've used a 27-inch 1080p monitor in the past and felt that it was just a little big for 1080p. Pixels per inch and all of those things like that. But looking at the specs of this, we're talking about a Samsung SVA panel again with a 48 to 144 hertz refresh rate. Now it's not as good as the 30 to 144 hertz, something like the Nixius View 24A would get you, but that's going to be a TN panel and it's going to be 24 inches. But they have a version of this in 24 inches, so I don't really want to compare the two monitor manufacturers because they're a little bit different. But what this one does is this one hits a market that isn't really being serviced very much. I believe I found one other monitor to fit this description, and it was by ViewSonic, and is another 32-inch 1080p. So this one does have like a processing in it that actually smooths out the edge of text and such so that it's not nearly as pixelated. It actually smooths it out quite a bit. But the heart and soul of this monitor is gaming. So I used it for all of my content creation stuff, and what I did like is, so sitting here I could literally just lay back pretty far from the monitor and still see everything very clearly. And that is a huge advantage of the size of it. The curve, I'll be honest, the first day or so felt really weird because this was the first curved monitor that I've used. But after that, I got really used to it and have kind of taken a liking to it. Now, it's not to the point where I can go back to a flat panel monitor and I go, oh, this is so inferior, I can't possibly use this. Now, it's not the case at all, but it's a very nice feature to have. Color-wise, the colors are very bright. The blacks are very, very black. In fact, we do a test here where I tried to capture if it had black backlight bleed. I couldn't see any, but because of the way the curve is and the way it reflects any kind of light, it's not a reflective screen, but on camera, the way any kind of light is reflected on it, it looks like it. So we move the camera around so you could see that shifts. It's very much no backlight bleed on the monitor, and viewing angles as we move around the panel are very, very nice. So I never found, even from up, top or below, any kind of color shift, anything like that. So that is a huge benefit over a TN panel, because share an office with my wife, or if you've got somebody looking over your shoulder for something, it doesn't look different to them. Or if you're watching a movie, which I found this to be a great monitor for watching movies. I'm talking like laid back in my chair, because it's got this little lever that lets me lay back, have a drink, and sit and watch a movie in my office without really being bothered and having to squint in. But when it comes to gaming, let's talk about the gaming aspect for a monitor like this. So it's very much, if you're leaned in playing a first-person shooter like Battlefield 1 or even Overwatch or something along those lines, because it is a high refresh rate monitor, so you're going to get that benefit. It has this very much this feeling of sitting down at the front at a movie theater. You kind of keep wanting to push yourself back, and you really can't if you're using the mouse and keyboard. So for competitive gaming, I can't really recommend it for that. But if you're an adventure, like if you play first-person shooters for the shooter and not the competitive nature, then it's great. It's actually very immersive, because of where you're sitting, it covers your field of view. It's big, so it covers a lot of your field of view, so you're not seeing a lot of surrounding areas around your monitor. Now, the gaming for this monitor that really, really was a winner for me was, I like to play action RPG and racing games. So these are the kind of games I was literally able to sit back with a controller. I know somebody out there is going to freak out, but games like Darksiders 2 to me are just more comfortable with a controller, and a monitor this size, I'm able to sit back and really enjoy the game and not really feel tied down. It has very much that don't go crazy, but that console feel where you just get to relax and play a game. Same thing with games like Mass Effect Andromeda, another game that I prefer to play with a controller over a mouse and keyboard. I know my aiming sucks, my aiming is terrible, but I play the game like that for the story and the adventure rather than the shooting mechanics. That's why I don't play the multiplayer. But even better than all of that is a racing game. Like, I love playing Forza Horizon 3, and using this monitor and everything, it's so smooth. And you could argue, well, Keith, why don't you just get a TV if you're going to sit back? Well, the TV's not going to give you that 144 hertz refresh rate or that FreeSync. And for all of the gaming that we did for the entire time, we had just a reference RX 480 in there, nothing special, and it actually made a very enjoyable experience. So this monitor at 32 inches, who's it for? Well, the competitive gamer, I'm going to say I don't recommend it for you guys. If you're a competitive gamer, the 24-inch model, so that your eyes don't have to move as far, and you've got a very tight viewing angle, I would recommend the 24-inch model if you're more of a competitive gamer. But if you're a casual gamer and you're not really that heavy into content creation, so you don't really need that higher resolution, but you'd like that higher frame rate that you get and being able to keep the details cranked up without having to blow the budget on a graphics card, something mid-range like a 470 to a 580 would be great on this monitor and most all your games that you're going to play, and stay within that 48 to 144 hertz frequency for the FreeSync range. So movie watchers, content consumers, adventure games, racing games, RPGs, this is a great monitor for you guys. But if you're more of a competitive person, I would recommend the smaller 24-inch version. But if you want to be an enthusiast high-end gamer, the enthusiast class, I'd recommend looking at probably their PX277 that they're actually in the process of refreshing. That's going to be your 144 hertz 144 hertz 2560 by 1440 panel. So we'll be looking forward to seeing that one in the future. These guys also do have a 34-inch curved ultra wide 3440 by 1440 monitor coming out. That's 100 hertz FreeSync. So hopefully we'll get to take a look at that one very soon. But for now, this has been Keith with WCCF Tech TV, and keep it tuned here for more news and reviews, and we'll catch you in the next video.